Thank you, Glee Club. Our next speaker has been my friend and my law partner for well over 30 years. He's had a distinguished career. Time prevents me from describing it all, but the Reader's Digest version is that he's had a number of firsts in his career. He was the first black partner in a major Southern law firm. He was the first black justice of the Virginia Supreme Court. And I think that I am on safe grounds when I say he is the first of our speakers here to have sparred with Muhammad Ali. Our speaker is a friend of West Point. He's an honorary member of the class of 71. He's made numerous speeches and presentations at West Point, including the annual law lecture to the first class, which he's been privileged to give twice. He's even preached the sermon at the Cadet Chapel. So it is my personal pleasure to introduce my friend, our friend, Justice John Charles Thomas.
General Franks, distinguished guests, members, family members, friends of the West Point class of 1969. As an American civilian who did not serve in Vietnam, but who has had family members and friends who did, and who have looked upon you all through these years with awe and respect, it is my great joy and privilege to be with you here today. When one reflects upon the members of the West Point class of 1969 who died in Vietnam, or who were missing in Vietnam, or who were severely injured whilst in Vietnam, one sees a picture of the very best that America had to offer. In their lives leading up to their time at West Point, they were readers and writers of poetry. They were track stars. They were Eagle Scouts. They were Golden Gloves champions, state football champions. They lettered in football and in basketball and in track. They were in the Honor Society and on the debate team. They were in the German club and the French club. They were president of the student body, vice president of the student body, senior class president, members of the Key Club, in the senior play, on the yearbook committee, on the prom committee. They were the pride and joy of their families, their communities, their churches, their schools from one end of America to the other. They were the promise of this nation, and they all wanted so much to go to West Point. They came to West Point because they were born in the Army, lived in the Army, loved the Army. They came to West Point because as 7-year-old boys, they told their fathers they wanted to be airborne. They came to West Point because they were born warriors who had to live the life of a soldier. They came because they had faith in the goodness of mankind and of America. They came to West Point because they thought that their country needed them. And at West Point, they were fiercely competitive. They were boxing champion of the regiment. They were champion marksmen. Their pistol team went 29-0. They were cross-country champions. They were gymnasts. They played lacrosse. They were in the skydiving club and the ski club and the military affairs club, the rocket club, the scuba club, the amateur radio club, the behavioral sciences club. They were in the Century Club, and they were on the honor committee. They did not let curfew stand in the way of a proper goodbye to their dates. Wrapped in their brown boys, they could sleep through any natural or man-made event. They were as happy-go-lucky as a summer breeze. They were in the midst of every prank. They were mature and determined. They were cheerful and the best of friends. They had a radiant sense of humor. They had wry wit. They were completely selfless. They were the ultimate friend. They were loud, happy, and unrestrained. They had a caustic sarcasm. They wore jungle hats. They smoked pipes. They put Army insignia on their B-robes. They helped their classmates in sciences, in math, in engineering. They got their airborne wings during the summer and wore them proudly on their cadet uniforms. They were editor of the yearbook. They were quiet and unassuming. They were the strong, silent type. They were called Snake and Greaser and Chip and Schroeds and George and John and Delwoo and North and Smiling Jim and Old Man. And they built with all their classmates a solid, firm foundation of friendship that rivals the very granite that West Point is built from and stands on. And when the time came, they chose the infantry. They chose artillery. They chose armor. They went to jungle school together. They won their Ranger tabs together. They became pilots and flew gunships. They became pathfinders. They won their jump wings together, and they volunteered for Vietnam. They moved their names up on the rotation, and they served. And while in Vietnam, they heard the voice of the poet say to them, in the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb driven cattle, be a hero in the strife. And heroes they were, every one. They volunteered to stay with their South Vietnamese unit, even when American soldiers were ordered to leave. They extended their tours of duty and died in hand-to-hand combat. They led their armored cavalry platoon to save an infantry platoon, and they died. They flew escort for a medical evacuation mission, and they died. They were the victims of multiple mine explosions, but they continued to direct the evacuation of their troops, and they suffered grievous injuries. They climbed to the top of a water tower to call in an airstrike, and they vanished. They volunteered to lead an extraction team to bring out a wounded ranger, and they died. They drew sniper fire away from their men to allow them to withdraw to safety, and they died. Surely they filled the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run. They earned the combat infantryman's badge, the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, the Army Commendation Medal, the Purple Heart. They died for the country that they loved. They died for principles that they believed in. They died at the call of duty. They died with honors. And their fathers exclaimed through tearful eyes, "These are my sons, in whom I am well pleased." And so it is for us, the living, to do all we can to remember them with the honor that they so fully deserve. Memory is a powerful force. The strongest memories are forged in the most difficult circumstances. You and your fallen classmates who have faced war for our country have faced the most difficult circumstances that any American citizen can ever face. And as we stand here today within weeks of Memorial Day and within one day of the celebration of the anniversary of D-Day, we must all remember the dire price of freedom. We too must hear the voice of the poet saying to us, "Let us then be up and doing with a heart for any fate," and telling us, act in the living present, heart within, and God o'erhead. We must all ensure that every veteran of war is provided for by this nation, that every citizen is fully aware that they serve so that America will be free, that the call to defend our nation is not answered by everyone, and that those who stand up and fight for America must never be let down by our country. And so I say to you, God bless the members of the class of 1969, living and dead. God bless the United States Military Academy at West Point. God bless America.
Thank you, Judge Thomas, for your friendship to West Point and your friendship to our class.